Shots fired!
Hey there. Recently we got a trailer for a brand new game coming out called Unrecord. It's a tactical first-person shooter that takes place entirely from the perspective of a police officer's body cam as you move through environments, engaging in the suspects, and trying to solve a complicated case. What stood out the most to people watching this trailer is just how visually stunning the game is. The game looks so good and so realistic that many people were worried that they were even seeing real body cam footage from a police officer engaging suspects. Once people realize that they are indeed not watching real body cam footage, they then start to wonder if what they are seeing is real gameplay. The animations, the movement of the camera and the gun, everything looks just too good and too realistic that there's no possible way it could be actual gameplay, despite the defenses brought up by the developers who worked on it. Now, when I personally first saw the trailer, I actually did believe that this was all 100% in-gameplay footage, and the most recent post at the time of recording that the developer put on Twitter showing the in-engine user interface and gameplay fully solidifies that this is indeed real, full in-game gameplay that we are watching. But then that begs the question, what exactly are we seeing here, and how does the game actually control? Well, I think I might have some ideas as to how they achieve what they have achieved with this trailer. Now, I do want to clarify that this is all purely speculation and opinion based off of what I know and what I've seen of the game. There's a good chance that I'm wrong about some or all of my guesses about what is going on here, so if I am, that's on me. But I figured it'd be fun to go in and put out my thoughts on exactly how this game is achieving what it is. First off, the easiest to explain away would be the visuals, and that they are using Unreal Engine 5. Anybody who's seen an Unreal Engine 5 showcase knows that they can make some incredible visuals with the engine. With the use of the Unreal Engine, I believe these guys could very easily make a highly detailed world like this. Especially because I believe that they are making smaller scale levels. As a mostly general rule in game development, the smaller scale you make your environments, the more detail you can pack into them. I imagine in a game like this, there's going to be a lot of close quarters encounters. No real big sprawling levels, more tight spaces like houses or, like we see in the trailer, small abandoned concrete structures. As far as some of the general animations like the movement of the arms, the reloading, the vaulting, and the door kicking, I think those animations are very achievable if you have a good animator with enough time and resources given to them. Based on what I've seen from the animator's YouTube channel, it seems like he knows what he's doing. Throw in what I would predict are some procedural and random animations, and you've got a recipe for a very good looking animation. Now, moving on from visuals, what I'm most interested in talking about is how the gunplay actually works. The way the characters' arms move and aim are very unique compared to what you see in most first-person shooters. So what's actually happening here? Well, let's take a quick look at what a player character actually looks like in a video game. So here I have started up Unreal Engine 5, and in front of me I have a pretty standard first-person player character. In video games, you have your camera, which is what allows you to see into the game world, and you have the character model. You see through the camera. That is what you see in front of your camera, which is typically the arms. Some player models have the legs and the torso if the developers want you to see those things. But for the most part, this is what you get in most video games, is the arms with the gun and the camera. Now, in most video games, the camera and the player model are one and the same. If you move the camera, the player model moves with it. If it turns to look, the arm moves with it. Pretty much 90% of first-person shooter games work that way. The camera and the player model move and work with each other and are almost never independent of each other. But there are indeed exceptions to that rule. Now, one exception to that rule would be Dark Messiah of Might and Magic. As described in Lord Mandalore's video on the game, as you turn your head, your body actually does not follow directly with the camera, instead kind of lagging behind. The body and the camera are more independent of each other rather than being linked completely together. I think there's something similar going on in Unrecord, but in reverse. From what I've seen in the gameplay, most notably in the Twitter video that was just recently posted, it looks like you have more direct control over the gun and the arms, and the camera is slowly catching up to you. So I believe as you move your mouse, you have complete control over where your arms are going and where you're aiming, and your camera follows closely behind to more better simulate a body cam kind of video. Now the exception to this would be here, when he seems to be freely looking about without having to move his gun around. But in this case, I'm willing to bet that he's holding down a button in order to initiate free look. In a lot of recent games, particularly tactical military simulation type games, there's something called free look, where you hold down a key and allows you to move your camera freely and independent of the character's body, allowing you to better survey your environment. And I'm assuming that in this gameplay, in this moment, the player is holding down a key in order to freely look about the environment without having to aim their gun everywhere. But now this brings us to the most interesting part, which I think is the aiming and the shooting. Now the Twitter video does show that you can fire from the hip like a more traditional game, but when you're aiming, it seems like you're able to move your gun far more freely across the screen. So how is this achieved? Now, I'm going to attempt to demonstrate what I think is happening in Unrecord by playing a little bit of Ready or Not and showing off a interesting system that this game has. So in Ready or Not, which is also a tactical first-person SWAT game, you have your standard leans. You press Q, you lean left, you press E, you lean right. Pretty straightforward. Now, what Ready or Not has is a fairly unique system I don't think I've seen anywhere else called Free Lean. As you hold down a button and you press the movement keys, you can see that your character freely moves about in a variety of dynamic ways. It's pretty interesting, and I think something similar is happening in Unrecord, where in Unrecord, I believe as you aim your gun, you enter into a sort of free aim system, similar to the free lean. But with the game being a body cam, the camera largely remains stationary. Okay, so I'm making a quick re-upload edit of the video because I just found a much better example of what I am talking about with the free aim mechanic. In this game called Receiver 2, it has hyper realistic, ridiculous gun mechanics for your pistols. But what interests me the most is, as we'll see in a second in the trailer, when you aim your gun freely moves about the screen, and I think that's a much better representation of what I'm talking about with the free aim, which is as you as you aim the gun, which I think they'll show another example in a moment here. As you see here, the gun is aimed and moving freely across the screen. I don't know if you have to stand still in this game, but clearly you don't have to in Unrecord. But that is what I think is happening in Unrecord, is you aim the gun, you're allowed to freely maneuver the gun through the screen. I think the body cam follows you a little bit. But yeah, so that's the better example. Check out Receiver 2. Fuck. So this all boils down to a few things are happening. We have a control system where you have direct control over the character's arms and their gun, and very little influence over where the camera goes, except when you use the free look system that they have implemented. And when you're aiming your gun, you have a dynamic free aim where the camera remains largely stationary as you're able to aim and fire at suspects. I would assume and hope that if you have more immediate changes and need to fire at hostiles that are outside of your field of view, that the camera will catch up much faster. So hopefully that all makes sense as to what I think is going on, and once again, I could be completely wrong as to what is happening, but that is my theory as it stands right now, and that's how my theory will stay until we get further clarification as to how the game works. All this to say, I am very curious about playing the game because I'm always down to try out a new gameplay method or control scheme to see how much it transforms a player's experience. With all that said, have a good one, have discussions, and see you all in the next video.
Where the fuck is Oscar?